Okay, cool. Let's do this once and for all, right? If you are a grade 10, grade 11, or grade 12 student who still struggles from inequalities, let's fix this once and for all. Let's make sure you never, ever, 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 ever get to struggle again whenever you are solving equations that involves inequalities. And like I say, we do not treat inequalities the very same way we treat an equal sign. If it's less than, if it's greater than, doesn't really matter. We must just know we have the simplest way to always approach questions like that. And perhaps we can even be able to know from the beginning of the question itself as to how do we expect our final answer to be. Let's see if we can simplify this once and for all. Let's go. So, first thing first, let's make sure we understand what the signs implies. So, we have the first sign, we have the second sign, and maybe I can also put an equal sign there. Doesn't really matter. We're going to call this sign number one, sign number two, and sign number three. But furthermore, we know that these signs, they can all include an equal sign like that, such that we would have something like greater or equals to, less or equals to, something like this. That's when they include an equal sign from the greater than and less than sign. But this is what the concept is. If I have 5 and I have 2, I'm going to start with this one. If I have 5 and I have number 2, it is very much to understand how does this work based on the first one and the second one. Now, I want you to picture these signs just like an arrow. The tip part represent some sort of an arrow. So we know how arrows, when we see them in cartoon movies or just our understanding of an arrow, we know that an arrow is built something of this form. And the tip part, that's the most dangerous part. The tip part, that's when you get the needle. And also, it's either it's facing this direction or the arrow is facing this direction. But at the end of the day, we know that the tip part is the dangerous one. Let me decorate my arrows there to make them look nicer. Now, if this arrow is fired, we know that the tip part is the most dangerous one, and the dangerous part is deadly, right? So if we have numbers like this, picture greater than as the first arrow. The pointy part represents the end part of the arrow. And if we have this arrow, here is the tip part. So the dangerous part is this. So our whole concern, our whole concern to this is that this is greater than, it's dangerous part. This is less than, it's the dangerous part. So think of them like that. So if you have a 5 and a 2, between arrow 1 and arrow 2, you must ask yourself, which one would you put in between? So now, between 5 and 2, which one is stronger? Which one has the strength to can conquer the other one? Obviously, 5 is stronger to can conquer 2, such that arrow number 1 would be in between. Hence, we say that 5 is greater than 2. If I say it going to that direction, 5 is greater than 2. But I can also say it from this direction going the other way around by saying 2 is less than 5. 2 is less than 5. So the lesser one, the opening part is pointing to the direction of the bigger number. To make this make sense, let's write it the other way around. We have 2 and a 5 now. Between error 1 and error 2, which one would I put in between? Obviously, I would put error 2 like this because 2 is less than 5. But then still, the pointy part is still facing on 2 based on 5, such that I can still say, if I say it the other way around, I can still say 5 is greater than 2. So looking at the arrows, it doesn't really matter if it's the first one or the second one. What matters is to which direction is it pointing. So the bigger one always conquers the smaller number. The bigger number always conquers the smaller number. It's only based on how you say it that makes it make sense. So we can say 5 is greater than 2, or we can say 2 is less than 5. Just like we can say 2 is less than 5, or we can say 5 is greater than 2. I hope this makes sense. If it's an equal sign, then it just means two values are equal. Like if you have a 2 and a 2, between 1, 2, and 3, the one that I would put in between, it would be sign number 3, because the two values are equal. It doesn't really matter whether they include the greater or equals to sign in between. If they include the greater or equals to sign, for a case like this, if I have uh, variables now, if I have variables such that x and maybe 3, and then they put this one, I say that x is greater or equals to 3. Or I would also say 3 is less or equals to x. Just like if it is like this also, and then they decide to put this arrow, and then it's like that, you can tell that this situation is the same, because x is greater or equals to 3, or 3 is less or equals to x. So don't get this confused. That's the first thing we must know. Now, the second thing that you must know is that when you divide by a negative number in inequalities, the arrow must changes and faces the other direction. Let me give you an example. If we have 2x is greater than 6, for instance, if I had to solve for x here, I would divide by 2 here, I would divide by 2 here. This will cancel that. Therefore, x is going to be greater than 3. That's what I would have. But if I have minus 2x is greater than 6, and then I have to solve for x here, because 2 is a negative. The moment I divide by a negative number, the moment I divide by a negative number, the arrow has to change and faces the other direction, the opposite direction, such that my answer here would be x is less than minus 3 now. Case number 3 would be, don't fall for it, 2x is greater than negative 10, for instance. Don't fall for it. If I have a case where I have 2x being greater than negative 10, if I had to solve for x, I would divide by 2 both sides. But look, as I'm dividing by 2, the 2 is positive. Even though I have a negative on the other side of the equation, this would still result as x is greater than minus 5, because 2 goes 5 times into 10. This would be greater than minus 5 because I didn't divide by a negative number. I divided by a positive number, hence the arrow doesn't change. But the moment I have minus 2x is greater than minus 10, the moment I divide by a negative number, then that's when the sign changes and faces the other direction, and then I will have x being less than 5. So if you see here, I divided by a negative number, it resulted in the sign changes and faces the other direction. Also here, I've divided by a negative number, it resulted with the sign changes to a negative direction. Here, I divided by a positive number, there was no change. Here, I divided by a positive number, there was no change. That is very much important to know. So far, if you haven't understood anything that I've said, please tell me on the comment. Write on the comment if you don't understand. I'll find a way to explain it again. But otherwise, if you don't, pause from here, go back again, try to understand the concept, because now we are coming to the punchline of the whole thing when you are solving inequalities. Now, going to the punchline, tell you what, in most cases, if you have x is greater than, say, a value of 2, you can represent this on a number line. All you need to do is just to draw your number line, and then also it obviously is going to go to that direction. Like a number line is like this, and then you put the number 2, and then you show it like this. You just draw a circle there, and then you point it to the direction of where the arrow is pointing. That's the representation of x is greater than 2 on a number line. If you have x is greater or equals to 2, and then you have to represent this one on a number line. Because it has an equal sign underneath, you draw the very same number line like that, and then you do your circle. But because it has an equal sign underneath, you must shade your circle to show that 2 is included. And then you also show it going to that direction. That's how it goes. If we have to show, say, a value of x is less than, we can think of any value. We can think of 5. If x is less than 5, you just show on a number line there. Then you can put your value anywhere, 5. Because your number, there are numbers in between the number line. It's going to be 5, 6, 7, 8, or 5, 4, 3, 2 as it goes lower like that. And then if it's less than 5, you show your circle, and then you show the arrow going to the direction of where the x is pointing. If you have x is great, oh, no. If you have x is less or equals to 5, same concept. You're going to show your number line, and then you show the value of 5, and then you show your circle there. Because it has an equal sign underneath, it means 5 is included, and then it goes the arrow to the direction of where it is going. So this is the graphical representation of these values, x greater than 2, but then we just show it in a number line like that. Now, when you are solving quadratic equations, you're going to have these two cases. It's either you're going to have ax squared plus bx plus c is greater than 0, or you're going to have ax squared plus bx plus c is less than 0. If you have this situation, obviously, for the first step, you're going to factorize. When you factorize, you still take your sign as it is. Also for this one, you're going to factorize. When you factorize, you get the less value as it is, just like that. And then you're going to have x is equals to whatever value it may be. You're going to have x under your factors. Also here, you will have x whatever value it may be, and then you will have x whatever value it may be, imaginary. Now, before you get to your answers here, you will have to represent the values in a number line. Before you can tell what the solution is, you're going to represent the values in a number line. Suppose we have a smaller value here, A, we have a bigger value here, B. Suppose we have a smaller value here, A, we have a bigger value here, B. Now, the way you give your solution based on whatever values you got from your factorization, those values, you're going to represent those values on a number line. And then the rule that you do, the bigger number, you give it, you take the bigger number, you give it the arrow of the original sign after you have factorized. Whatever sign you have after factorization here, you point it to that direction. So the original sign goes to the bigger number, and then the smaller number has to go the opposite direction. So that's where your solution is. Exactly as it is on your number line, you go and give your solution such that x is less than a, or x is greater than b. This is what you have. Bigger number takes the original sign, smaller number opposes the original sign. Whether it's a positive number or a negative number or a both negative number, it doesn't matter. But the bigger number takes the original sign, the small number goes the opposite direction, and that is your solution. You take it as it is. X is less than the smaller number, or x is greater than the bigger number. That's when you have a situation of greater than. Now let's look at this one. This one is greater than, this one is less than, it's going the other direction. Between A and B, obviously my bigger number will be on the right. This will be the bigger number. The bigger number, I must give it the original sign as it is. It's going to go to that direction. and then up to infinite, right? And then the smaller number has to go the opposite direction. So the smaller number will go to that direction. And then we say that in this case, the solution is anywhere where you see the two lines coexisting, where the two lines can be seen together. For instance, from here going that side, we can see that it's only one line going that side. And from here up until infinite, we can see that it's only one line going that side. The only part where the lines are coexisting is here. Now, where the lines are coexisting, we say the solution is between the two lines. Now, to show the between solution, you're just going to say x is between. By between, you show two arrows pointing that direction such that the bigger number will be this side, the smaller number will be this side. And in reality, whenever you are solving a question like this, these are the only two possible solutions you can get. These are the only two possible solutions you can get. Sometimes you find students showing something like this. X is greater than that, like the signs are facing that direction, or the signs are both facing like that, or the signs are facing each other. In mathematics, this doesn't exist. You will never, ever, ever find a situation like this. The only situation of pair of answers that you can get under quadratic equations, it's either is the first one or the second one. If your solution doesn't look like this, it means you didn't do whatever you were doing right. And always it's going to be X, the arrows facing that direction, bigger number this side, bigger number this side, and smaller number this side. Guys, this is how it's always going to be all the time. All the time. Now, let's do some practical questions to apply what I'm talking about here. Let's do some practical questions. This was given to be less or equals to 0. Now, I have to find the solution of this. The first thing I'm going to do is to represent the values on a number line. Now, ideally, we know that if I had an equal sign here, x would be equals to -7 or x would be equals to +4. Now, I have to represent these values on a number line as they are based on their sizes. So obviously, I would have -7 here and I would have +4 here. And then what do I say? The bigger number, it goes to the direction of the original sign after factorization. I'm going to show my circle here because there's an equal sign underneath. I will shade my circle and then it goes to that direction. And then the smaller number has to go the opposite direction. Also, I will show my circle and then I will shade it because it has an equal sign underneath and then it goes that direction. And then my solution is anywhere in between here where I see the two lines coexisting, meaning this side going that side is not part of the solution. This side going that side is not part of the solution. The lines are only interacting in between here. Hence, I'm going to say the solution is between -7 and 4. And to represent that, I would say x is in between 4 and -7, such that the bigger number this side on the opening and then the smaller number, because the smaller number is always being conquered. So this is my solution. Either way, it's always going to be like this. Let's try another example. Suppose now, in a perfect world, instead of having a less than or equals to, suppose now this was greater or equals to, right? Again, I show my values in a number line. In a number line, I still have -7 and 4. The bigger number must take the original sign. And then I'm going to shade it and then it goes to that direction, right? And the smaller number must go to the opposite direction of the original sign. And then the smaller number will go to that direction. Guys, there are many different methods of doing this, but then I just believe this one is far much easier. If I look at this, my solution, I just take it exactly as I see it on a number line, such that x is less or equals to -7 because it's pointing that direction, or x is greater or equals to +4 because it's pointing that direction. That's the first example we're going to do. Let's look at another example. X squared minus 4x minus 12 is greater than 0. Step number 1, obviously, I will have to factorize. That. Therefore, I have x, and then to get the factors of 12, such that those factors of 12 might also give me a 4. My factors would be 6 and 2. And from then, I can tell that the 6 would be negative and then the 2 will be positive because I'm expecting to get a negative here. So the bigger number will be a negative. And then from here, I show my number line. Let's do the number line. And then the values are going to be such that if I had an equal sign here, I know that x would have been +6 or x would have been -2 if I take it out from here. Now, if I represent this on a number line, 6 would be here because it's bigger, -2 would be here because it's smaller. Now, what do we say? The bigger number must take the original sign after factorization. So the bigger number, I'm going to show a circle here, but this time around, I'm not going to shade my circle because there's no equal sign underneath. And then this is going to go to that direction. And then for -2, because it's a smaller number, it has to go the opposite direction. So -2 would go to that opposite direction. And then as it is from my number line, I take my solution directly from here. Therefore, x is going to be less than -2 or x is greater than 6. That's how it is. Nothing more, nothing less. You don't get a mark for the number line. You only get marks for the solution that you're going to get. That's why I'm like, people use different methods to solve this part of the number line. But this one I'm giving you right now, it seems like it's the simplest I can think of at the moment if you are struggling from this. Is greater or equals to 0. Suppose I have this situation and I'm required to find the value of x, or I'm required to find the solution of x in the situation of the inequality. If I write this properly, of course, I want to write this in the form of a proper quadratic function. So I want it to be in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c is greater than 0. I want it to be in this form, right? Since I want it to be in that form, I'm going to rewrite this as minus x squared plus x plus 12 is greater or equals to 0. However, the moment I have a negative a, if my a is negative, it means I'm going to divide by 1 throughout this equation. And I'm not only dividing on the right-hand side, I'm also dividing on the left-hand side, because mathematically, what you do on the left, you also do on the right. So let me do it manually. I'm going to divide by 1 here, I'm going to divide by -1 here, I'm going to divide by -1 here, and I'm going to divide by -1 here. Now look, my new expression is going to be such that positive x squared, because -1 divided by -1 is positive, so it's going to be positive x squared. Here, -1 divided by positive x is going to give me negative x. -1 divided by positive 12 is going to give me -12. But look at this. Because I have divided by a negative, I've said it earlier that if you divide by a negative, the arrow must change and faces the opposite direction. Now, because I've divided by a negative, now the arrow will change and faces the opposite direction. And then it's less or equals to 0 like that. And then the next thing I'm going to do is to factorize this part here. To get my factors here, my factors would be less than 0 there, it would be x and x. And then to get the factors of 12 such that the factors of 12 might also give me a 1 for the midterm, obviously it's going to be 4 and 3, because 4 times 3 is 12, but then also 4 minus 3 is 1. And I would give the negative to the 4, and then this one will take the positive because I need a negative number here for a bigger number. Now, when I get here, I do what? I represent my values in a number line. When I represent my values in a number line, what would be the next step? The next step is to put the values there. So if this was an equal sign, ideally I would find that x is equals to 4 or x is equals to minus 3. Now, if I put the values here, I would have 4 here, I would have minus 3 here. Now, what do I do next? The bigger value, it goes to the direction of the original sign after factorization. So now I'm going to show my circle here, and because it has an equal sign underneath, I will shade my circle, and then it goes to that direction. And then for minus 3, I will show my circle here because the smaller value, it has to go the opposite direction where that one went. So this one will go to that direction. And then my solution lies anywhere where the arrows coexist. From here going that side, I can see it's only one arrow. From here going that side, I can see it's only one arrow. The arrows are only coexisting in between the two values. Hence, I will say my solution is between 4 and minus 3. And to represent the in-between, I just show x, I show the arrows facing the left, such that this side will be the bigger number, which is 4, conquering the smaller number, which is minus 3. Guys, if you do it like this, you will never, ever, ever, ever get any answer wrong under inequalities. Thank you for watching. And if you have watched this far, feel free to leave us a comment on the comment section as to what topic do you think we can simplify next. And also do subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow us in all our social media platforms as well. And if you want to inquire about our private lessons, feel free to send us either a WhatsApp or an email. Here is the contact here. And yeah, I'm Mr. Maimane, and this is Simplified RSA. We are the guys who makes it looks easy to make sure that everything is simplified for you so you get to be ready for your exams and whatever academic challenge you may face. Thank you.